Yeah, you ate it really fast too, Sally. We actually had tacos yesterday.
Yeah, we did have tacos yesterday.
Had tacos for lunch.
We had tacos yesterday for lunch.
I just want to say I love you guys so much. And I hope you guys have a fantabulistic day.
Okay. I think my teacher would not like me because I'm glitter, I have makeup on, and I have lipstick. Hello. Okay. Wait, bye.
Why are we dressed up today?
For book character day.
Hey! Look, watch. It didn't even come out. Logan, who are you today?
I'm Jack Skellington, the Pumpkin King.
What?
What did you say?
He's weird.
All right, so we just got the kids on the bus, probably just past 8 o'clock this morning. Welcome to my first YouTube video of my new channel for myself. So yeah, like I said, this is gonna be my first YouTube video for my new channel. This channel is gonna be all about me and kind of my life as a designer, a creative person. You know, you guys will kind of see behind the scenes of some of the stuff that I get to do, some of my family. You guys will learn a little bit on this channel about video production, graphic design, and hopefully you guys will find some inspiration in it, and we're gonna do some good things together. So if you would like to see some more, make sure you stay tuned every week for weekly content. I'm gonna try and get up to a couple times a week doing content, but for right now with my busy freelancing schedule, once a week is probably gonna be all I have time for right now. But that's not to say that we're not gonna do some cool things. And yeah, so I'm about to get inside here, kind of get some coffee in me, and then we're gonna sit down, and today's video is gonna be all about how I go about setting up the lighting and camera setup for the FranckNStyne Oddcast podcast that I am the producer of. So if you guys want some more information on kind of how I do things, then stay tuned. And if you don't, maybe I'll see you next week. Peace out. And we're back. Now we're inside. You guys saw a little bit of my coffee. Oh, wait. Forgot my coffee. There we go. Now we're good. So. All right. So, again, thank you. If you guys have made it this far, welcome to my new channel. This new channel venture for me is, like I said before, it's gonna be just kind of a behind the scenes of a creative videographer, graphic designer. I don't really know what you would call myself. I kind of do everything. I really wanted to make this channel for people like me who were interested in YouTube, interested in being a creator, and felt like watching all of these big names on YouTube was kind of daunting, and maybe you never felt like you could get to that point. You know, I feel like I'm now emerging into that role, and I honestly never felt like I would ever get to a professional status, if you will. But you know, here I am now. I'm kind of starting over as a freelancer. I recently quit my job about a month ago just because it wasn't something I was happy doing, and just being unhappy every day was not a good way to mentally be and live my life, especially with a family, coming home at the end of the day grumpy because of some place that I didn't want to be. It just didn't make any sense to me. So without further ado, we're gonna get into today's video. In today's video, I'm gonna kind of go over how I set up for the podcast that I produce, and that is the FranckNStyne's Oddcast podcast. That was created by a good longtime friend of mine, Mr. FranckNStyne, and a couple of his friends, King Bino and his main man Turb. This was something that was brought to me like 3 years ago or so when Frank brought it up to me initially, and I thought it was a cool idea, but I really didn't have the time, nor did I really see a vision, because I wasn't really into podcasts and stuff back then. I mean, I didn't get into podcasts until about 2019 or so, and I'm way behind the curve like I always am on everything. I don't like trends. I don't like doing the same thing that everybody else is doing. So he approached me this summer, and he said he was ready to go. So, I told him what I could offer to do for him, and, here we are about 3 or 4 months into it, and it's been going good so far. So I'll leave a link down in the description. You guys can check out that channel if you'll like and subscribe there too. We are on a roll, and we're just really excited. So if you guys are interested in just hearing some guys talking about some shit, that's all it really is. So make sure you check them out and check us out there. So to start off, we do the shooting at Frank's house. We do it in his dining room. We've kind of makeshifted it into the podcast arena, if you will. It's gone through 2 looks now. If you go back to our earlier episodes, you'll kind of see the window in the back door there, where they let their dog out. We kind of shifted it 90 degrees and put the television screen as the backdrop on the wall, and I think it's turned out a lot better in the last couple episodes, and I think that's how we're going to continue to go with that. But to start off, the things that you'll need to kind of make this happen are a few lights, a few cameras, and I'm going to break down kind of what you'll need here. So the first thing that we start off with is our camera setup, and the cameras that I use for the podcast are the Sony a7 III and the good old reliable trusty Canon T3i. Now you guys might be thinking like, why are you using such an old camera? I've had that camera since about 2013, and it's been my workhorse for about 10 years now, so it really has never failed me, and I cannot complain about it. You put the right kind of lens on it and it works wonders. So you don't need any fancy equipment. I have had the fortunate ability to upgrade in the last couple months to a new Sony camera. And yes, I realize the a7 IV just came out, but it's another $600 or $700 from the deal that I got on my Sony, so I'm fine with what I have right now. So the next thing you'll need a couple of tripods. I use Manfrotto brand tripods. They seem to have worked well for me this far and this long. So one of them is a shorter leg tripod. It doesn't go as high as the other, but it's great for a stable, non-moving scene. Then we have another tripod that floats between each individual on the podcast. The next thing that you're gonna need are some lights. Now the lights that we use are newer brand. We have 2 panel LED lights with barn doors, and then we have 3 newer, I think they're called hand or stick lights. They're long, very thin, probably about that long. You can use them as handles. They have handle grips too if you want, but we put them on stands. And we have about a total of 5 lights for lighting the subject. Now to light the background, we also use some newer brand lights with a red filter on them, because red is kind of the theme of the podcast. The couches on set are red. So we tried blue one time, but I think the consensus was that red was the best. So red is what's gonna be for the time being. We're talking about upgrading some LED strips into the background as well to kind of make it pop a little bit more, but in due time, everything will kind of come together. So the first thing that I do to get set up is I like to get my cameras placed without any lighting. I kind of set them up in a general place just to have them set. I really don't do any settings or anything yet. I wait for all the lights to get on before I do all that. But what I do is I set up the Sony, because it is a full frame sensor. It gets more of the room. So I use that as my center frame, non-moving angle. And that gets all 3 of my subjects, right, like I said, right in the center frame. It gets everything good, and there's no movement needed. So it kind of lasts really well. So next what I do is I add a monitor to the top of the Sony, because if you know anything about the Sony a7 III, the screen only pulls out, it does not swivel. So I have to put a monitor on the top of the camera so that I can see it from the side because the camera actually is pushed all the way up against the wall, so I can't get behind it to see anything. So having the monitor on there at 90 degrees allows me to not have any issues viewing the screen or anything like that. The next thing I do is set up B camera in a relative spot. This one really changes last minute the most because this one actually does swivel, and I'm able to capture each subject in the relatively same frame. The subject on the right sometimes comes a little too close to the camera, so I have to kind of adjust that last minute, like I said, after I get all the lights in and get all the settings dialed in. So for the setup on the lights, what I like to do is I like to start with my newer LED panels with the barn doors first. I set those two up at the corners of the setup. Because like I said, I have to light 3 subjects. It's a little harder than kind of your normal setup. I have to pump a lot more light in the room to make sure that each individual has enough light on their face and on where they're gonna be so that we can clearly see what's going on. After I get the 2 newer panels set up, I kind of raise them and I pitch them down at a rough 45-degree angle, and I'm using that just to kind of get some light, like I said, pumped in on them coming from up here. The next thing that I do is I work with the newer LED sticks that we have. We put them on stands, and 2 of them we put vertically, very low, to kind of pump more light onto the front of the subject. These lights aren't the best lights. They are actually kind of a cheaper option, and because they are, we need more of them to kind of do what maybe one more expensive light, like an aperture light, might do for the situation. So after I get the newer stick stands lights on, I get the final one, which is on a T-stand, and I use that as an overhead light. And this one primarily is lighting up the table that's in front of everybody and my center subject, who is usually Frank. He gets at least 1 single light put on him, and he kind of feeds off the other 2 lights that are coming from the corners. Now my background lights are like I said, the newer round bicolor lights that we put a red filter on. I usually turn up the brightness all the way, and I will splash these lights onto the back wall. Now this is the light that I play around with the most, because sometimes I like to put it kind of more behind the subject and kind of put a splash of color from behind them. Sometimes I'll put it out of the frame and just splash it on the wall. It kind of depends on what I'm going for. I mean, again, we're 4 months into the podcast and I'm still trying to figure out what I think looks best. And, you know, playing around is the only way that you're going to do that. So after I get all of the lights kind of in the relative spot that I want, I have my subject sit in each spot, and I make sure that everybody is lit well. And then what I do is I go to my camera settings from there, and these are very, very basic. I just want to make sure that my exposure is as close to the middle as I can, so that I can play around with color if I need to later in post. I get everything exposed about as perfectly as I can for my Sony camera, and then I'll move on to my B camera, where this one takes a little bit more adjusting, like I said, because it swivels and it goes around to each individual character on the show. It makes it a little bit harder, but the T3i, it works well for me for that. And usually I'm hovering around either 400 or 800 ISO, and I'm always shooting in 24 frames, so my shutter speed is roughly about 1/50, and then we'll shoot my aperture usually not on the lowest, because like I said, I'm swiveling between individual characters, and the person on the right, if I have my aperture cranked all the way down, they're gonna most likely come out blurry in comparison to the counterparts on the rest of the set. So I pump it up to about 5.6 if I can. That usually kind of determines if I'm, like I said, if I'm at a 400 or an 800 ISO. There's not anything in between there for the T3i, so you know, I'm kind of at the mercy of that, but it hasn't failed me so far. So it's good coffee. So yeah, so that's about the basic setup that I set up every time for the FranckNStyne Oddcast podcast. Again, we are really, really new, and I'm really, really learning how to use such a small space to encompass 3 subjects, sometimes 4 if we have a guest, but lighting 3 subjects with the lights that we have is not the easiest task in the world, but it is possible to do with a low budget and a small space. So thank you again. If you've made it this far, you have made it to the end of my video. I hope that you guys got a little bit of value out of this video, and if you didn't, maybe you got to know me a little bit more on a personal level. Maybe, I hope so. Please make sure you go and like and subscribe to this new channel of mine, and stay tuned every week for some fresh content on kind of what it's like to be a creator. We'll do some setup reviews, we'll do some history of me and myself in the industry, if you will. You know, I really hope you guys enjoyed what you heard today, and I hope to see you guys every week. Please make sure you go like this video and subscribe to this new channel of mine. You know, this is a very exciting venture that I'm starting out on, and you know, I can't wait to do some more. I can't wait for you guys to get some more in depth of me and how I create and what I do, and even maybe see some of my family and get to know me on a little bit more intimate, personal level. So I can't wait to see you guys again, and make sure you tune in next week for a little bit of a backstory history lesson on how I got started in being a creator. Bye.